evening, everybody, and welcome to today's video, which is about the hearing that happened today at Mid-Sussex District Council. Today was the culmination of many months of hard work on all sides, not just from me and those that support me behind the scenes, but also on the council's part and on Scientology's part. A lot of work went into today's events, and to cut to the chase, my application was denied by the council. However, there are some significant points that I think are important to discuss now the hearing is over, and we're going to review some highlights because I know it was a 3-hour-long meeting. Not everybody would have watched the whole thing. So we're going to talk about why this hearing was important, and also what it means when it comes to the future of protesting outside St. Hill at the IAS event. A little bit of context before we go any further, because many of you may have been following this since it has been started as a process. Many of you might be new to it. Many people may have only dipped in and out, so they may not have a complete understanding of exactly what today was. So I thought I would start by explaining that, and how we got to where we are today. Then we'll look at some clips and we shall discuss and have some questions at the end. Before I do that, I wanted to start by, this is my little my nice little touch that was subtle today. Today I wore a Sea Org tie to the hearing. This is the tie you get when you sign your 1 billion year contract dedicating your life to working for the Church of Scientology. It is official there, New Era Publications. I just thought that was a fun little touch to stand there opposite the Office of Special Affairs and the head of OSA, Scientology's barrister and Scientology's solicitor, and the council to make my case. Which is just a little minor win from my perspective. Maybe a little bit petty, but nonetheless, I thought it was a nice touch. So, first, before I explain what exactly today was, let's look at some of the comments, because I know a lot of you have been waiting for this live. So hello, Danielle Chamberlain. Thank you so much for joining. Gary Palmer saying, I need to go meet my mate at 7, but I'll catch up on the replay. No worries. Thank you for joining. And hello to those on the replay crew. Hans Christian Schwartz here. Good evening, Alex, Danielle, and guys. Zoe also saying she's going to miss the live, but I'll catch up later. Just wanted to say, though, Alex, you were excellent today. Thank you so much. Golden Astro Cat is here, as is Chris Shelton in the house. We'll see what this is all about. I gotta say that you get, I love that you get to go in a public forum and take on Janet directly. I wish I had opportunities like that here. Becky, Big Brother fan, saying hello all. Thank you for today, Alex. No, thank you. And thank you to everybody who has been supporting behind the scenes. Selena is one of those people. Thank you so much for helping behind the scenes. And also, I want to begin also by saying thank you to Mid-Sussex District Council. I know the application was rejected. It didn't go the way we had hoped today. But nonetheless, officers did put a lot of time and effort into reviewing the evidence and the application that I submitted. They spent a lot of time reviewing it, writing the report, and of course, presenting it to the council today and the committee who reviewed it. Thank you for your time. It is not easy to take on the Church of Scientology, especially when they have a reputation for legal threats and litigation. And I understand the council decided to seek legal advice at every stage of this process, which of course will come with a cost to the taxpayer. That was their decision. I don't think it was absolutely necessary, in my opinion. However, it will be interesting to see if the numbers do come out, how much it did cost the taxpayer and how comparable that was to the Public Spaces Protection Order, the attempted protest ban that Scientology filed last year, which did cost the taxpayer £84,000. Anyway, so today was about licensing. The Church of Scientology have a headquarters in East Grinstead, Sussex. It is called St. Hill, and it is indeed the UK headquarters, and they have what's called a premises license. Now, the premises license is what allows an organisation or a property to do certain things called licensable activities. For example, the performance of a play, or the playing of live or recorded music, the supply of alcohol. These things are regulated activities in the United Kingdom, and if they are for audiences of more than 500 people, they are licensable activities, and you either need a temporary events notice or a premises license in order to carry out those activities on your property. A temporary event notice, I was corrected today. My understanding was slightly incorrect on that one. Only applies if the event is for up to 500 people. Scientology's big annual event is bigger than that, so a temporary event notice is not appropriate. They have to have a premises license. Once you are issued a premises license, it's not something you have to reapply for every single year. You've got it, basically, and it can be reviewed at any point in time as requested by a responsible authority like the council or a member of the public, such as myself. So, although the IAS event, which is Scientology's annual big gathering of their membership body, which takes place in October most years at St. Hill, although it takes place in a giant 85,000 square foot tent that is erected illegally without planning permission, which is a whole nother matter, that planning permission, if they were to get it, doesn't actually authorize the event itself or the things that happen at the event, such as the supply of alcohol, the performance of a play, the playing of music, the exhibition of a film. Those are the licensable activities that the premises license allows. So they could have planning permission or not, and they could still host the event. If they didn't have a premises license, they'd be able to host an event, but they would be limited in terms of what they could do at that event. So, for example, they would not be able to play a film, they would not be able to perform a play, or have any sort of live entertainment or music, or supply alcohol. But they still could theoretically hold some sort of an event without a premises license. So, in November, I submitted an application for the council to review Scientology's premises license. I basically made the case that the licensing objectives, which there are 4 of them, the prevention of crime and disorder, the protection of children from harm, the prevention of a public nuisance, and the I'm completely forgetting the other one. Public safety, promotion of public safety. Those are the 4 licensing objectives. And if you have a premises license, you need to ensure that you are promoting those 4 licensing objectives. So, if you apply for a premises license to be reviewed, it has to be on the basis that those licensing objectives are not being promoted or met on the premises, and therefore a review is necessary as to whether they should be allowed to continue having the premises license. So, all of your representations and the evidence have to relate to those 4 licensing objectives. You can't just say, I don't like the fact that they have this event, or, I think that people are being harmed by Scientology, or the practice of Scientology is harmful. Those things do not theoretically relate to the licensing objectives. You have to tie it in to those 4 things. So, when I made my application, I produced a lengthy report that broke everything down as per the licensing objectives. And the case that I made was that Scientology's premises license should be reviewed, not necessarily revoked, but at least amended, or conditions attached to it, because the licensing objectives were not being met. One of the prime examples of that is public safety. People walking in the road at the IAS event. It's a dark, narrow country road with no lighting. There's no high-vis jackets. Scientology placed obstructions on the road, which meant people had to walk in the road, which is dangerous. And therefore, Scientology are not promoting the licensing objective of public safety. And so therefore, if you were to add a condition to the license that required lighting to be put at the entrance, for example, that would bring the event in line with the licensing objectives, and therefore we'd all win from that. So I could have just said you should revoke the license. I didn't do that because I think Scientology do have the right to hold events on their property, and I don't necessarily have a problem with them doing so. I just have a problem with, the willful disregard for public safety and other things. So today's hearing was about the application that I submitted, and it followed a very particular format. It is a kind of very legally type thing that happened today. And obviously, my application ultimately was denied. So we didn't win the case. But there are some key takeaways, and I do think that it was an important meeting, and it was an opportunity to stand there and speak to directly the Office of Special Affairs. And what we did win was the fact that the government, the local government, scrutinized Scientology's event, the IES event. So I proposed, for example, that perhaps a maximum capacity could be added to license conditions. What is going on? I don't know what happened there. My restream randomly bugged out there. I hope you guys can still hear and see me. So I made the case that if there was a capacity added to the premises license, no more than 1,000 people could attend this event, and therefore the disruption would be less, and therefore the license conditions would be met, and so on. And ultimately, the council said no to that. But it did result in a public debate on Scientology's IES event, which I think was much needed and is valuable. And it does have implications for the future of the protest. So before we watch some clips, let's look at some of these comments here. Selena here, thank you so much for joining. Alex, you're looking rather handsome today, dear. I'm pleased to see you wearing a pocket square that's nicely folded and well paired with your outfit. Thank you very much. You can tell I used to work in fashion, eh? Lots of comments here. Chris Shelton, willful disregard of public safety is pretty much Scientology's motto. There we go. Andrew here saying, was Janet there? Yes, she was. And she was looking rather miserable. Andrew, your video quality is dropping. I hope that is fixed now. Chris saying video quality bounced back to battery for me. Okay, I hope the quality is okay now. Can you confirm that the quality is okay in the chat? While I do that, I'm going to line up this clip. This is from the Mid-Sussex District Council live stream today of the hearing. Video quality is better now. Fantastic. The hearing was like 3 hours long. Okay, so we're not going to watch the whole thing. We're just going to watch some clips. Now, a bit of context on this first one. So the way it worked was the licensing officer, John Bryant, basically introduced the subject and the contents of the report that he produced. After that, I was then given the opportunity to ask him questions. Scientology could ask him questions, and then the council could ask him questions. Then it was my turn to give my statement, and then there were the questions, and then Scientology's turn, and then ultimately there was a decision. That's the way it was meant to go. And you can read the report if you really want to that John Bryant produced on behalf of the council. It's on their website, but I'm just going to clip to the end here when it got to the question section, because I bring up an important, or what I think is important point about the council's relationship with the Church of Scientology. Over the last couple of weeks, obviously, there has been back and forth between me and the council regarding this application. I submitted evidence, so did Scientology. And back in November, when I was making the application, I submitted some evidence in the form of photographs and statements, and the county councillor, Councillor Jackie Russell, also wrote in. I didn't know at the time, but she wrote in saying that she thinks the premises licence should be reviewed. And then a couple of weeks later, I then got in my application, and I realised a couple of days ago that Jackie's email and the evidence I supplied at that time was not included in the evidence pack that was given to the council for the purposes of writing the report, and therefore wasn't considered when John Bryant wrote the report. So I asked him why that was. And I also referenced something that happened a couple of years ago that for me is slightly concerning. Let's watch.
Mr. Bryant. We turn now to Mr. Barnes-Ross as applicant. Do you have any questions to Mr. Bryant?
Yes, hi, thank you, Chair. Mr. Bryant, could you explain to me why the email that was sent to Lucy Corrie and Judy Holmes by County Councillor Jackie Russell on 6th of November in relation to the application, in which she voiced her concerns about public safety and the licensing objectives not being met during the IES event, was not considered when producing your report that was given to the committee members?
Yeah, certainly. As I stated, the actual review was received on the 9th of December, so that predates the review application. Councillor Russell has not made a representation herself in respect of the review application. And in essence, it's not the responsibility of the licensing authority on receipt of a review to trawl through all the emails that we may well have received in the prior to that to add into the report. The report only concerns matters which have been raised and forwarded as part of the public consultation. And obviously, subsequently, you forwarded them to the licensed authority and they have been added in. But that's the reason why they're not in the report, because they weren't submitted as part of the review or part of the consultation.
So essentially what he was saying is because those emails and the evidence was supplied a couple of weeks before the official application was submitted, even though in the email that we're talking about here, I'm talking about potentially making an application and here is the evidence, and his response was, you need to make an official application, here's the form, and I then submitted the application. Even though that's what happened, he is saying that it doesn't count because the evidence needed to be supplied after the actual receipt of the application itself. However, it is good that they did accept the evidence later. They did add it in. However, it wasn't considered when writing the report that was presented to the committee members, which is slightly concerning, especially when you consider my next question.
If jump in, sorry, excuse me. So I'm not employed subcommittee.
I'm just going to fast forward this bit here. Thank you. Because that was from the barrister representing the council, not entirely relevant to the catch-up that I'm doing here. Could you, Mr. Bryant, explain why, when I emailed you on 2nd of September 2024, I do have the email here if anyone wants to see it, asking whether the council had received notification from the Church of Scientology for their upcoming event as per their premises licence. Instead of replying with the answer, which would have been no, you proceeded to ask Scientology to submit the notification so that you could answer my email with a yes. It seems to me like perhaps you may be acting to protect Scientology's interests rather than the licensing objectives.
The role of the licensing authority is primarily to ensure compliance. And so therefore, when it's flagged that there may not be compliance, our first route is to try and get compliance from the licence holder concerned, whether it be the Scientologists or whether it be a brewery or any other licence holder. So the first course of action for the council and the licensing authority is to ensure compliance. It's not to prosecute. If, of course, their compliance didn't occur, then we would look at taking further steps. And you would be aware on that occasion, the request was made for the plan and the plan was supplied.
So just to recap here, what we're talking about, for those who missed it, in 2023 or 24, whatever it was, right, Scientology, as part of their premises license, have to submit a notice to the council to say, we are going to be holding an event on our property. They have to do that 6 weeks before the event itself. And so in one of the previous years, I emailed the licensing officer and said, has Scientology submitted the notification? Because audio crackling out of sync. It might just be the screen sharing. Am I out of sync with me talking and you hearing now, or is it just when the screen share is going on? Please let me know. So Multi-Chick here saying a semantics issue. Not really. What's happened is I emailed the council and said, have Scientology told you that this event is happening? Because they have to give you 6 weeks notice. Instead of replying with the truth, which is no, Mr. Bryant went to Scientology and said, hey, I've received an email saying, asking if you've submitted your notification. You should submit your notification. He waited for the notification to then be filed, and then he emailed me back and said, yes, we've received it. I only found out that that was the course of events afterwards as a result of emails that I got through the Freedom of Information Act request. So what I'm trying to paint a picture of here is perhaps Mr. Bryant is acting, or it certainly appears as though in that case, he was perhaps acting in Scientology's best interests rather than the public's or the licensing objectives interests. And the fact that he didn't include evidence on this minutiae point and just generally the contents of the report. I'm only mentioning it because it makes me question whether there is some form of corruption when you also factor in the consideration Scientology have a policy of safe pointing, which is their attempts to infiltrate government at various levels. And I just wonder whether this is evidence of something like that happening. I'm not, of course, accusing Mr. Bryant of doing any such thing, such as not doing his job properly or due diligence or whatever. He did put a lot of time and effort into this report. But I think it's important context to note, and that's why I asked those questions, just to set things up in terms of the council's position itself with Scientology. Now, it's certainly true that the whole council isn't corrupt, because we look at the Public Spaces Protection Order, the protest ban that occurred last year, that failed because the council found that our protests were non-disruptive, that they were protected by human rights legislation, and the cause of the disruption and the problems around the event were actually Scientology's events problem rather than us as protesters. So they ruled in our favor then. So I'm not suggesting the council is corrupt. I am only questioning Mr. Bryant's decisions and actions at that time with relation to this particular premises license. Multi-chick here saying, so his communication priority to Scientology. Yes, exactly. Led for Leany here saying, well done on calling it out, Alex. Thank you so much. Maybe John Bryant wants a free ticket to see the Jive Aces. Who knows? But nonetheless, I wanted to ask the question. Okay, the next highlight is my speech to the council. It is 10 minutes long, so I don't think we're going to watch the whole thing here, or maybe we shall. Put a 1 in the comments right now if you just want me to play the whole 10-minute speech that I gave. Put a 2 if you want me to just skip through it and maybe play some short highlights. I have the time, so I can play the whole thing, and it's completely your choice. Let me know. 1 for yes, play the whole thing. 2 for just play snippets. The whole thing is available on the Mid-Sussex District Council live stream on YouTube if you do want to go and watch the whole meeting. But I thought it'd be interesting to play some of it here. You're coming in with 1s. Okay, we'll watch the whole thing. That's fine with me. So, again, context, and why I bring up the Mr. Bryant concerns is because the council as a whole appears, in my opinion, to be acting in a manner that is perhaps slightly unfair, because that history of what's happened before is considered. Also, I was given strict instructions that I could only speak for 10 minutes. However, Scientology were given 15 minutes to speak, and if you look at the whole meeting, they were given way more time than I was to make my case, to present their case, which I did bring up at the end. But I do think it's important. Another important point to note that it was me versus the whole Scientology OSA team and the council and so on. And I was given the least amount of time, which is, I think, slightly unfair. Anyway, all right, let's have a look at the statement that I gave in relation to the application. Here it is.
And to the applicant, Mr. Barnes Ross, to amplify or clarify his application. You have 10 minutes maximum.
Thank you, Chair. I would like
And thank you as well, and obviously for the officers for producing the report and spending the time on looking at this due diligently. I'd like to begin by explaining the context around this application and provide an explanation as to why I believe it is necessary to review whether the current premise licence provides adequate conditions so that the licensing objectives can be met. St Hill is the UK headquarters of the Church of Scientology. It's located on a dark, narrow country lane with a 60-mile-an-hour speed limit that is dangerous at the best of times. For the majority of the year, Scientology successfully hold events on their property to which there is minimal disturbance to the otherwise peaceful in which it is located. These include a bonfire night, a fireworks display, Christmas light switch-on event, and Easter egg hunt for children. I firmly believe that the Church of Scientology have a right to hold events on their property and encourage initiatives that support the local, and I'd like to make clear from the outset that I'm not seeking to interfere with these events. My concerns relate solely to the Church's promote the licensing objectives and issues to arise as a result of licensable activities that occur on the property. I forgot to unmute my my microphone. I think this is a good way of doing it, to maybe deconstruct my statement as we go through like this, to give you some added context and thoughts as to why I've said certain things. Scientology's response to my application was 43 pages long. It was, for the most part, a huge attack on me and the protesters that have gathered outside the IES event. I have gone through that in a previous video. If you want to hear what they've got to say, I've also shared the document publicly on my blog in a previous video. Scientology's case is that the council should throw out my application as vexatious because I'm just trying to inconvenience, or actually they used the word incommode, the Church of Scientology, and that I'm just doing it as some form of payback and I'm an anti-religious gut and therefore council shouldn't listen to me. And so I just wanted to clarify from the outset that I am not seeking to interfere with their events. I just think that it should be reviewed in the context of this license because the objectives aren't being promoted as they should be, and public safety is a very real concern. Another thing, which we're going to get to in a second in this speech, that Scientology were trying to claim was that because their property at St Hill is a registered place of public worship, events that occur there are therefore not licensable. Now, there is an exemption in the Licensing Act 2003 that basically says if things that would normally be licensable activities, such as supply of alcohol or the performance of a play or playing of live or recorded music, those things, an exemption applies if they are occurring at a place of public worship or in relation to a religious worship ceremony or an act of religious worship. So another point that Scientology were trying to make is that because St. Hill is a place of public worship, the IES event is therefore not licensable anyway, and so the premises licensing does apply, and you should just throw it all out because it doesn't count because it's a place of worship. And I addressed that point in this speech. Let's carry on. In Scientology's 43-page application, a number of allegations and accusations were made, and personal private information was disclosed relating to the members of the public who have protested outside the property. I do not understand what the lawful basis is for Scientology to obtain, process, or share this data is, and frankly, it is frightening that it continues to investigate, monitor, and harass former members like myself, all for simply asking the organisation to respect and abide by the same rules and laws as the rest of us. Although it would be tempting to respond to each of these claims for the sake of self-preservation, I consider that their response does not relate to the licensing objectives, and so will disregard the majority of its contents for the purpose of this meeting. However, I would be more than happy to answer any questions if councillors deem it's relevant. Every year in or around October, the Church of Scientology's official membership body, the IAS, hosts its annual gathering at St Hill, to which thousands of people attend from across the world. The event spans an entire weekend and comprises the main event on a Friday, a patrons ball on Saturday, and a charity concert on the Sunday. The Friday event is open to Scientologists and non-Scientologists, so long as they have not been expelled from the church. And last year, several East Grinstead Town councillors and Mid-Sussex District councillors attended the event, including District Planning Vice Chair Dick Sweatman. The event involves entertainment, the exhibition films produced by Scientology Media Productions, and the playing of... Another point that I wanted to just pause on for a second. This event is attended by councillors, including the Vice Chair of the District Planning Committee, Councillor Dick Sweatman. When we're talking about potential corruption, the council's dealings with Scientology over this licensing issue, I just think it's also important to factor in the fact that the idea that councillors go to this thing, which I believe is potentially a conflict of interest, but something to consider. Of recorded music. The speech given by reclusive leader David Miscavige, I would argue, amounts to a performance of a play due to its theatrical nature, fake Navy-inspired title, and presentation of fictional statistics. The Patrons' Ball is a black-tie dinner at which Scientology's largest donors receive trophies for parting with vast sums of their money. Ticket costs start at $600, and ticket sales alone generate over $1 million for the church. The event comprises of the exhibition of a film, performance, or playing of live and or recorded music, entertainment, and the supply of alcohol. The Sunday charity concert. Essentially, what I'm doing here is I'm listing the licensable activities that occur during the IES event. And that is because one of the comments made by the licensing officer, John Bryant, was that the IES event itself, that's not licensed. Only the licensable activities are. So what I'm doing in this statement here is specifying the licensable activities that occur during the IES event weekend. That is where Scientology donates £50,000 checks to local charities, such as the neighbouring sports, rugby and cricket clubs, and involves the performance of dance, the exhibition of a film, the performance of live music, entertainment, and the playing of recorded music. In 2023, a specialist valuations tribunal ruled that some parts of Scientology's buildings are considered places of public worship. However, it is important to note that this categorization does not apply to the entirety of their property. Central to Scientology's belief system is a practice known as auditing, which could be described as spiritual counselling. And this is what the church argued was their act of public worship when conducted in a group setting. The IES event is, as its primary function, a money-making activity for the church and does not involve any group auditing, sermons or prayers, and therefore no acts of public worship. The event takes place in a large temporary marquee erected illegally without planning permission and in a field that is not considered a place of public worship. The event is not ancillary to Scientology's religious practice, and indeed the event has been held elsewhere and abroad on multiple occasions in the past. This therefore means that the events that take place during the IES event weekend are in fact licensable, as the religious exemption laid out in the Licensing Act does not apply. For the majority of events held at St Hill throughout the year, I have no concerns that the licensing objectives are not being promoted, and it is clear to me that the issues arise only when attendance exceeds 1,000 people, and specifically that happens during this IES event weekend. For example, during the Bonfire Night and Christmas Light Switch-On event, although recorded music is played over loudspeakers on the property, those loudspeakers are placed near the castle and in the event areas themselves, meaning passers-by and local residents are shielded from noise pollution thanks to the distance between them and the event. However, during the IES event weekend, Scientology placed loudspeakers on the edge of their property, erected at St Hill Road, that play loud, repetitive bagpipe music on loop from morning until night, which amounts to a public nuisance. Obstructions are placed on the public right-of-way directly outside the entrance to their property, and in 2025, as Mr. Bryant mentioned, hoarding was erected, forcing both event attendees and passers-by to walk in the road, which I remind you is a 60-mile-an-hour dark country lane. Inadequate lighting is provided at the entrances, and the majority of their own security guards were not even wearing high-vis jackets. West Sussex Highways have now ordered the removal of the obstructions for 3 consecutive years, and although the church argues they were placed there on police advice, they have provided no evidence of such, and highways only implemented an emergency TTRO in 2025, reducing the speed limit to 40 miles an hour due to the threat of public safety these obstructions caused. It is clear that the Church of Scientology behaved differently during this event than they would otherwise, and it is my position that not only are the licensing objectives not being promoted, they are being willfully disregarded in such a manner that poses a risk to public safety. Last year, the Council considered an application from Scientology for the creation of a PSPO, during which officers took detailed observations during the 2024 event. And just to jump in here, PSPO is the Public Spaces Protection Order. That was the protest ban that Scientology tried to get in place and failed last year. So I'm referencing here reports produced by this council that are hearing this matter, and concluded there were numerous issues relating to public safety, public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. The recommendations made by the Council were not put in place in 2025, and it has therefore become necessary, in my opinion, for the premises licence to be amended so as to ensure the licensing objectives are met. The issues raised in my application appear to only arise when events are large in scale, and whether due to poor management on Scientology's part or lack of oversight from the Council, something must be done to ensure public safety at these events is prioritised, public nuisance is prevented, and children are protected from. I would like to propose that not that the licence is revoked entirely, but rather that a maximum capacity is introduced that limits licensable activities to audiences of no more than 1,000 people. Some conditions already exist on the licence, for example, which requires the Church to submit risk assessments for larger events and inform the local authority at least 6 weeks prior. However, this condition does not specify that this notification must actually include the exact date of the event. During the PSPO, Lucy Corrie stated, I quote, that the Council don't know far enough in advance to be able to put a robust management plan in place and advise partners such as Blue Light Services, which places difficulty on public services and resources to provide the adequate safety measures. Conditions could also be added to the licence to ensure those entering and leaving the property are better protected from potential harm, for example by requiring lighting to be provided along the road to increase visibility, and or by requiring pedestrians to access the property using a single entrance to minimise people walking in the road. These recommendations were put to church by the Council during the PSPO process, however were simply not implemented at the last event. A licence condition could also be added to oblige the licence holders to submit post-event reports, including traffic, safety incidents, noise complaints, and mitigation performance, and to introduce a potential penalty regime for non-compliance. The Church of Scientology have a well-documented history of attacking and harassing critics and former members like myself, and as such, many local residents are simply too afraid to report their concerns to the authority, and when they have, it appears, based on their representation submitted to this committee, that they have gone ignored or not even recorded altogether. I'm referencing noise complaints that I know have been made, but obviously have not been recorded. I'm not seeking to ban events at St Hill, only to minimise the disruption that occurs when the licensable activities are occurring to large audiences exceeding 1,000 people, and to ensure public safety and the other licensing objectives are not just promoted, but prioritised. Thank you for your time. Okay, so that was my opening statement. 35 seconds left on the clock. I was given 10 minutes to speak, and I wrapped up in just under 10 minutes, 9.5 minutes. Scientology then subsequently had an opportunity to ask me questions. The council had an opportunity to ask me questions, as did the licensing officer. If you want to go and watch the whole thing, you can do so on the Mid-Sussex District Council YouTube page. I have put a link to that in the description. But I wanted to share that as my opening argument with you guys so you could see the position that I was taking. Ultimately, what I think is important from today, even though the decision was to reject my application, we managed to get several key things on the record and said at a public meeting. And we did manage to succeed in getting the council to review and scrutinise the Church of Scientology's IES event, which I think is huge. And that's why I'm not, overly disappointed that we didn't get the application progressed from today, because I think we did learn things, and we did get some things on the record. Let's have a look at some of your comments before we carry on. Becky, Big Brother fan here, saying, of course, Scientology's argument is just a dead agent, any opposition. Yes, absolutely. Golden Astrocat here saying, the fact that councillors go to Scientology events definitely makes them compromised. Very valid point. Selena here saying, you got fake Navy into the record. Oh, yes, we did. Peter Inar here saying, Alex the Legend, thank you so much. I appreciate that. There's also some comments here talking about the audio. I know there are audio issues when I share my screen. Is the audio problem just when I speak, when I pause the video and then I'm talking, or is the audio distortion the actual screen sharing video that I'm playing? And if it is that, is it like too much to deal with? Because there's one more clip I would like to play, but if the audio is acting up and it's a bit of a nuisance, I won't play it, and I can kind of clip it and upload it later. Please let me know, because it's all working fine on my end. Maybe it's the BTs we can blame it on. Let me know in the chat. But nonetheless, that was the position that I took. Scientology asked me some questions, like, for example, did you, you're the one that organizes the protests, right? Are all of the other people who submitted representations protesters, and things like that. And the barrister who was representing Scientology was fumbling around quite a lot. Hans Christian Schwartz here saying, split screen mostly, but it's tolerable. Rachel, the audio distortion seems to be the screen sharing, but it is not too much to deal with. Okay, fine. It's from the council video. Please keep going. Okay, great. We'll keep on going. There's only one more clip. Now, present at this meeting was a barrister representing the Church of Scientology, Scientology solicitor, Mr. Hodkin, who is also a Scientologist, and I used to work with his daughter, actually, at the London Church of Scientology. Also present were Janet and Graham, who are the OSA bosses here in the UK, that are personally directing the harassment against me, the fair game attacks against me, that I'm currently the recipient of, and they were present at the meeting. You can see them on the camera, and they did make comments occasionally. But every time I show the face of a Scientologist or mention the name of a Scientologist on this channel, the Church of Scientology subsequently submit a privacy complaint against the video in an attempt to shut it down, and get the video taken down on privacy grounds. So I'd like to preface this next clip with, although you can see these people in this clip who are Scientologists, this is a recording of a public council meeting at which they were present, which has also been live streamed on the council website, and I therefore think that it's okay to share this next clip. And if there are any complaints, I would like to really question why they were present at the meeting if they weren't willing to be recorded, because they knew that they were being recorded and they knew that I was going to be doing some sort of live stream catch up afterwards. Anyway, so this bit here is where after Scientology have made their statement, I then ask questions of Scientology. And this is perhaps my favorite moment from the whole day.
Questions from the applicant?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Could you please confirm for everybody which part of the IES event itself forms public religious worship?
Well, the event takes place over 3 days. The third day is a charity concert, which doesn't involve worship. The first day is, correct me if I'm wrong, is a seminar. The second day is the seminar, covering important developments in the church's year, and the first day is also internal church event, which I'm getting this right, Peter?
I might help. Obviously, what is happening in?
Just make sure you use your microphone, sorry.
I am sorry. How do I? Yeah. What happens in the key in terms of the IS weekend? I wouldn't say was public religious worship. We have a charity concert. We have seminars. We have all, and so some aspects of the IS event also occur within the public place of worship, which is the castle. The entire castle is registered as a public place of worship. So, in terms of how we've responded to the application, of course, we've simply made the point that quite a lot of the activities that occur in St Hill year-round, which might be licensable possibly because of other reasons, would not be because of that exemption. That was the simplicity of that point.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hodkin. So to confirm, the IES event itself, which is the event that thousands of people attend once a year, which causes these problems, the disruption and so on, is not itself part of the religious worship practice of Scientology, and it occurs in a marquee to the rear of St Hill Castle, which is the place of public worship. It is not itself an act of public worship.
No.
Okay, thank you. And then the next question I have is regarding who's actually responsible. Okie dokie. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here because it does go on. There is more to my question, and it is entertaining. I will put a clips thing together. But why I wanted to share that was because it was hilarious to see how clearly unprepared the barrister was for answering that question, and how I completely decimated Scientology's argument that the IES event should be allowed under the religious exemption because it's an act of worship, because I simply asked them what part of the event is religious worship, and they clarified none of it. And the solicitor, Mr. Hodkin, confirmed that the IES event does not include any form of religious worship. Now, why is this important? Although it did not sway the council to proceed with the application and vote in our favour of making amendments to the conditions on the premises licence, we now have on the record at a public meeting Scientology's representatives confirming the IAS event is not an act of religious worship and it does not form part of the religious beliefs of Scientology. Now, this is something that we knew already, but having them confirm it has a long-standing impact on our right to protest outside St. Hill, because one of the arguments that Scientology like to make about our protests outside the IES event is that we are anti-religious bigots, and we are hate speech propagators, and we are targeting a religious gathering and preventing people from engaging in an act of worship which is protected by the Equality Act, and therefore we should be shut down. That is their argument. And this here now serves as evidence that the event itself is not an act of public religious worship, and therefore our protests outside the event cannot be framed as anti-religious, as anything to do with stopping people or frowning upon people who are engaging in an act of religious worship. It is not a religious matter. Scientology just confirmed that this is not a religious matter, which is going to have a huge impact going forward if there are any future legal questions or debates or complaints about protesting outside St. Hill. So Scientology have just safeguarded our right to protest outside their UK headquarters. And for that, I wish to thank Mr. Hodkin, the barrister, and of course, Graham and Janet. And that's why this meeting, although it didn't go our way, was still a win to some extent. Let's have a look at some of these comments here before we wrap up. Andy Two Arms saying, there were times when Alex had the barrister on the back foot. It was brilliant. Thank you so much. Selena here saying, brilliant question. Thank you. Danielle here saying they were certainly caught on the back foot here. And Amir is in the house. Hi, Amir. Thank you so much for joining. Wow, this dude's fumbling really bad. Yeah, I was very tempted to say flunk. Mr. Barrister, flunk. But I didn't because, you're not meant to interrupt and you're meant to allow the process to happen with a question and answer response format. But flunk, Mr. Barrister, for fumbling. Okay, so that's why this meeting was important. And although we didn't succeed in getting additional conditions put on the premises license, we did manage to safeguard our right to protest outside St. Hill at the IES event, which is vital. And I think that is a really positive outcome that we have got from today's hearing, which I think is a win. Now, what happens here? The council are going to produce a report outlining why they rejected the application, because at the end of the meeting they just said that we are rejecting the meeting due to rejecting the application due to insufficient evidence, and within 5 working days we will produce a report outlining the reasons for our decision. So we've got to wait 5 days for the report. It will be very interesting to see what the reasons are for the rejection of the application, and after that we will decide what next steps are. I can, of course, appeal the decision if I wanted to. I could take this to the magistrates' court, which is the next stage in the appeal process, where there would be a new hearing and more evidence would be allowed to be presented, and it all escalates. However, that does come with a lot more cost in terms of time and in terms of resource and, of course, money. So that is a consideration. If I do end up taking this to court, we would have to do some sort of fundraiser to cover those costs, because especially if you lose, you then have to pay the other side's costs, which can run into the tens of thousands of pounds, even though it's magistrate, which is the lowest level of court in the UK. But it is an option. But I think the decision for now will have to wait until we've got the report. I think it was a very interesting meeting. I'm glad that it happened. And I'm glad I managed to stand up and face my abusers and sit there and talk in a room in a cordial and professional manner about my concerns to do with this large annual IES event that occurs every year. So today we succeeded in getting government scrutiny of Scientology's annual IES event. We succeeded in safeguarding the future of protesting outside St. Hill, and we succeeded in getting on the record that our concerns were not vexatious and our concerns are valid. One concern I do have, and I'm just going to put this out there. At one point, I presented a list of timestamps because Scientology were arguing that that there is no video evidence of people walking in the road at the IES event, even though I had supplied 3 days of live stream footage from the protest. So I supplied a list of timestamps. Thank you very much to the person who helped me compile that, who shall remain nameless for now, but you know who you are. It was a great help. Your input on that, thank you. I gave them a printed copy of this list of timestamps for every single time somebody walked into the road or crossed the road or some such event. It was debated, it was discussed, whatever, moved on. That's not the important thing. The important thing is I gave a piece of paper to the Church of Scientology at this meeting, which had my fingerprints on it. I did not think this through. I was going to ask for the piece of paper back at the end of the meeting, and I did not do that because I completely forgot. But this is concerning when you take into consideration journalist Paulette Cooper. Those of you who are unfamiliar with this story, journalist Paulette Cooper was framed in the 1970s. Scientology sent an agent to deliver a package or something to her house and gave her the form to sign to say she'd received the package. And from that document, they managed to take her fingerprints, and they then proceeded to send themselves fake bomb threats with her fingerprints on them to frame her for a crime. This was only discovered and overturned as a result of an FBI raid that occurred in a different case that unveiled and found documents talking about this plot to frame Paulette Cooper. If it wasn't for that FBI raid, she would have gone to prison or jail. So Scientology have framed somebody in the past with their fingerprints from a document. Now, they may or may not do that with me. Who knows? But they do now have my fingerprints, and I just wanted to put it on the record right now that I am concerned about the potential of this happening. And I want to make it very, very clear from today, if I haven't made it clear enough already in the past, that I don't have a problem with people who choose to practice Scientology. It is your right to freedom of belief in the UK. I have nothing against Scientologists. I only have a problem with the abusive practices and behaviours that the church is engaging in, such as, for example, the harassment of myself and other ex-members. And I'm doing what I can to campaign against that abuse and raise awareness of that abuse with kindness and compassion at the forefront of everything I do. I have said this multiple times in the past, and I have absolutely no intention whatsoever of doing any harm or threatening or hurting or doing any such thing to any Scientologists or the church itself. I personally think it would be very counterproductive to do something like send a fake bomb threat or, become violent or anything like that, because all that does is break the law, first and foremost, and damages my case that we just want the abuse to stop. I don't think doing something like that would help our case in any way, shape, or form. So just to make it explicitly clear in this moment in time, on the day that Scientology did receive a piece of paper with my fingerprints on it, that I have no ill will towards Scientologists or the church itself. I'm simply campaigning for them to follow the same rules and laws as the rest of us. Let's have a look at some of these comments before we wrap up here. Amir here, thank you so much. Oh, no, not Amir, sorry. Goosebump saying, you've been extremely clear and consistent on this, Alex. Thank you. I know I harp on a lot about it. I just want to make sure I'm very, very clear from the offset about that. Bill Karmetsky saying, go power Thetans. Thank you so much. Multi-chick, my friends in the USA, notice of the cult of Scientology. It is familiar, no. Document it all and report it on YouTube. Absolutely. Rachel suggesting that somebody needs to investigate any involvement some of these council officers have with Scientology. Absolutely. Leanie here saying, I was screaming at the screen, Danielle. I had a few words to put it politely. Absolutely. Very, very valid points. Golden Astro Cat saying, hats off to you, Alex. It takes a lot of guts to do what you did today. Thank you so much. But again, I couldn't do it without you guys and all of the support that I've been given behind the scenes. It is a team effort. So thank you so much. The Unbreakable Miss Lovely. Yes, that is indeed Paulette Cooper. Cara, I hope they had you giving that paper to them on camera in the council offices. Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to go back and watch the live stream, see if it was caught. It certainly would have been caught on CCTV. Whether it was broadcast on the public live stream, I'm not sure. But indeed, a very valid point. Okay, that's kind of it, I think, for me, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the culmination of many months of work, and I am now going to take a little bit of a break from this sort of stuff. When I say a little bit of a break, I will be going live in due course, probably tomorrow, about another matter. But I am going to rest for the rest of the evening now and try my best not to think too much about today, because it has been very intensive. If you want to support the channel, please make sure you press the subscribe button and that like button. Those things really help get the message out to more people. Those of you who have supported financially, I just wanted to say thank you so much. For those of you who have donated coffees and sent PayPal donations in the last day or so after my call out yesterday, this is a very expensive and very resource and time heavy process here in the UK. And I really greatly appreciate everybody who has helped behind the scenes financially as well as in other ways. And if you would like to support this and you would like to contribute towards the expenses, even though it didn't go our way, it's still something that I had to take the day off work for and something that cost money to make happen. You can donate through Buy Me a Coffee or PayPal down below, but please do not feel any obligation to do so if you can't afford it. The best way of supporting the channel and the work that I have been doing is by sharing this video, commenting once the live stream is over underneath the video, and subscribing and liking all of that stuff. So thank you so much. I will see you guys on the next one.